Welcome to the VIS Physiology Lab. I'm Simon Blundell and I'm the High Performance Services Coordinator. So, as you can see over here, we've got our treadmill. We use this with our team sport athletes, our track and field athletes. We get them to come in, we can do a VO2 max test, we can do a progressive step test on it to assess their levels of fitness and get some training thresholds back from them in terms of heart rate or lactate thresholds as well. We've also got an enormous rowing program here, a very strong rowing program, and we need to be able to cater for those athletes. So as you can see, we've got the rowing ergo set up here, and again, we can move the equipment around the lab to be able to measure those athletes in terms of their lactate, their VO2 max, etc. We've got our bike over the back here, which we use for all of our cycling athletes, so road, track, mountain bike and BMX. And we can put them on that and again do a VO2 max test, or we can put them through what's called a power profile test that assesses their power over a range of efforts and also can give us an estimated VO2 max and some lactate and heart rate thresholds. We've got our blood analyzer and we use that when we're assessing athletes' hemoglobin mass, which is a performance measure we use to assess the level of adaptation where athletes have been away training at altitude. Obviously the desire of that is to produce a higher level of hemoglobin in the thinner air. When they come back down to sea level, obviously they've still got those higher levels of hemoglobin, and that means that blood can actually capture and transport more oxygen, which is the adaptation that you're looking for. We've got our MET card over the back there. We've also got a range of heart rate monitors, core temperature pills, so that we can put athletes through a range of tests and get some really good data across a wide range of variables back on those. Outside of this, we've got the ability to do both on-site and off-site field testing. We've got light gates that we can set up on our indoor running track here and do a range of sprints or repeated sprints. Those are also portable, so we can take them out to the clients and actually measure them during a training session. So it saves their athletes having to travel enormous amounts of time to get here. We can also obviously run various other beep tests, yo-yo tests, agility tests, vertical jump tests to enable a wide variety of athletes and sports to get some really good feedback as to how their athletes are travelling and what stage they are in their preparation. Today what we're doing is we're doing a power profile test on one of our Paralympic cyclists. The test is designed to give us an assessment of their power wattage and wattage output across a range of times and efforts. It starts with a couple of 6-second sprints, which is from a standing start, just flat out go for 6 seconds to see how much power they can produce in that immediate burst, ranging all the way through to eventually to a 10-minute effort where we want to see what level of power they can sustain over a longer duration.
Consistent speed. There is no indecision in the body of Cadel Evans. It's all out to try and make it to the finish line first.
Typically the athletes that we get in to conduct this kind of tests on are our road and track cycling team. From time to time we've had mountain bikers and BMX athletes in here as well, and we can set the bike up, change the configuration of the handlebars to best mirror the bike that they're actually going to be riding.
Previous ride, it was a blistering finish by the Australian. Perkins really upped this game there, and the other two were ready to take advantage of it.
Now what we're doing is we'll be collecting some gas to get a predictive VO2 max for our athlete today, just to allow us some assessment as their level of fitness. We'll also at various intervals be taking a lactate test just to get their lactate levels in their blood, so that we can also work out what their lactate thresholds are and gives us an ability to feed that information back to their athlete and their coaches with regards to their training thresholds. We're collecting heart rate data as well, which will also feed back and gives us that opportunity to give some feedback to both the athlete and the coach about where the athlete is now and identify some areas where they might like to target their improvement. So for instance, Hannah may have terrific short-term speed, but when we get to a more sustained level, that power drops away. So they can feed that information back into her coaching to start working on her power over a more sustained period. Or conversely, she may have great sustained power, but be lacking that short, explosive top-end speed that perhaps when she's coming to the end of a road race, she needs that sprint to the line. We want her to be able to have that power to get her up over her fellow competitors.
enjoying the occasion. The crowd salute Australia, and how fitting is that? Next year these championships go home and Cadel Evans will be in the rainbow jersey. An outstanding result for Australia, and in particular for the man from Barwon Heads in Victoria. Look at the...
Brown, nice pass, Caldwell under the post. Making it look easy, the Vixens at the moment. Making it look very easy.
Yeah, great vision there from Brown and just a perfect delivery.
Hi, I'm Nick Sanders. I'm a performance analyst here at the Victorian Institute of Sport. My main role is working with the Melbourne Vixens netball team, and I'm doing some video analysis here on my computer just behind me.
Nice pass from Corletto. And Brown ends up with it after a string of passes, and Caldwell.
What I'm doing is coding events from the game. The opposition coming up this week, which is the Adelaide Thunderbirds. So I'm coding the centre passes, the players that are involved in that, then where the ball turns over during a game, and the players involved and how that occurs, so that we can put strategies in place during our training this week, and then also strategies in place in the game on the weekend when we play them, to hopefully exploit those turnovers and obviously score more goals than the opposition. The other things that we can do is look at where the shooters are shooting from, and then hopefully guide our defenders to defend their shots effectively, to obviously cause some misses. Or we can also find out where there are certain zones where they like shooting, and then try to steer them away from those to put them in awkward positions or positions they're not used to shooting in.
At the moment, high scorer on court.
Mentor, great work again. Get the feeling Borrego's going to have their work cut out today. But there we go. The Vixens, 3 games on the road and now 3 wins to start their season. They've smashed the Thunderbirds on their home court. It's 48-34, a margin of 14 for the Vixens. And pretty much...
So here we are in our heat tent room, and we've got athletes in there at the moment. They're actually busy acclimatising for a competition they've got later on. So we get them in there at a high temperature and humidity that I guess is appropriate or suitable to where the competition's taking place, and we'll have them exercising in that to get that level of heat acclimation that we require to one, get them more comfortable in the environment, but the idea is ultimately to increase their rate of sweating so that they can effectively cool themselves, and at the same time drop the level of sodium and other electrolytes that are being lost in that sweat. So we'll normally hydration test the athletes to make sure they're commencing each session fully hydrated. So we'll get them to do a first thing in the morning urine sample. What we've got then is we'll have patches similar to these placed on the athlete's body, and they actually collect the sample of sweat during the course of the session, which is then removed, placed in one of these vials and sent up to the AIS for analysis. And what that actually tells us is what rate of sweating the athletes are having, so how many litres of sweat per hour they're losing, and it also lets us know what level of electrolyte losses are taking place in that sweat, particularly electrolytes such as sodium and potassium. So we can again give the athletes some really accurate feedback about what their body's doing and how it's coping, so they can tailor a hydration strategy to make sure that they remain hydrated despite the adverse conditions they may well be competing in.
What a moment for the Australian. She's gone through so many mental battles in this race, and as she grits her teeth with determination, she'll take a massive, massive boost by coming past Vita Nyagambo. And remember...
Okay, so as you can see, we've got our heat tent set up with multiple exercise bikes in here and the treadmill obviously. The idea is to get the athletes in here and get them working really hard. We find the best way to do that, particularly when you've got multiple athletes either on the bikes and especially on the treadmill. You can see around the room we've got a number of heaters that are set up to really get the temperature cranking in here. And down here in the corner we've got our humidifier that's jetting up a fountain of steam there to really get the moisture content in the air all the way up, so that our athletes do really get that adaptation to the climate that we'll be competing in.
The epitome of a brave bronze, Lisa Wakeman has taken on her demons here out on the humid streets of Delhi, and she's overcome them. A really, really gutsy performance. She's gritted her teeth, but now it becomes a smile because she is the Commonwealth bronze medalist. What a moment for the Australian woman, who who continues her country's rich tradition in female Commonwealth marathon running. She's absolutely exhausted.
So as you can see at the moment, our heat temp's registering just over 30 degrees Celsius and just coming up towards 50% humidity. So any athlete working in here would really be working quite hard, and we can really get them very well prepared for competing in a hotter environment. We're about to have a chat with Danielle, one of our sports scientists, about some hemoglobin mass testing that we've been doing to check as a measure of adaptation to altitude training. I'll hand you over to Danielle.
Okay, so this is the hemoglobin mass testing using the carbon monoxide rebreathing technique. So what we do is we take a baseline blood sample of the athlete and we then run that through our blood gas analyzer to have a look at the carboxyhemoglobin levels within the blood. We get a baseline reading of the amount of carbon monoxide on their breath as well. And then they use the spirometer to use the rebreathing technique. So they breathe in and out while we inject some carbon monoxide into the spirometer. And they breathe for 2 minutes. And then after that, we then get a post blood sample and a post breathing reading as well to have a look at the carbon monoxide that has remained on their breath, in their blood, and also within the spirometer itself. So we use the hemoglobin mass test to have a look at how an athlete has responded to altitude training. So we usually do a pre-altitude exposure test to have a look at their baseline levels, and then we'll test them again once they've come back from their altitude camp or after being in an altitude tent. And we monitor them weekly coming off altitude just to see when we get a peak in their hemoglobin mass and where that matches up with performance. So they'll do that weekly and then we can determine when it's best for the athlete to compete post-altitude exposure.